Do you ever think to yourself, hey, I know what I want to do today. I want to fly to Japan and enjoy an incredibly crispy katsu with a silky smooth curry, because I think about that a lot. But then I think, we have katsu curry at home. Now, before we get into this, it's important that you know just how talented you are, because you're gonna make this and then you're gonna be like, wow, oh my gosh, this is so delicious and so easy, wow. So I don't want to see a single one of you in the comments saying, I can't, because you totally can, and I believe in you. Now, the first thing we're gonna start with is our rice. This is about 3 rice cooker cups because I'm cooking it in a rice cooker. If you're gonna cook it on the stove, that's fine, it's just a little different, but today we're talking about rice cooker. Once our rice is in our pot, we're just gonna go ahead and fill it with water. And as you can see, it's pretty gross and disgusting and murky and gross. So you're just gonna wanna rinse it a few times with cold water and agitate it with your fingers to help break any loose starch off. And once that water is running clear, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're gonna fill it up to the corresponding line in your rice cooker. So in my case, I use 3 rice cooker cups, so I'm filling it to the 3 line. And we'll just pop it in and wait. And now for our silky smooth curry. And if you're already thinking, man, this is gonna be a heavy meal with fried chicken and curry, rice doesn't exactly thin it out. I'll show you a good solution at the end. These are curry cubes. They are absolutely delicious. There is nothing wrong with them. And I recommend if this is your first time making curry, you know, it's not a bad shortcut, right? It's not a bad way to start. And there are multiple brands that make these. S&B is just one of my favorites. There's also Vermont, that's a really, really good one. And they come in different heat levels too. So if you like mild, great. But if you want something that's going to
scorch the inside of your mouth,
they have that too. And they kind of look like pistachio chocolate, but it's not pistachio chocolate, so don't eat it. But today we're gonna be making the curry roux from scratch. And we're gonna start by melting down about 9 tablespoons of butter, unsalted butter, and do this on a medium heat because you're not looking to really brown the butter, you're just looking to get it melted. Once it's fully melted, you're gonna go ahead and let it sizzle for a few minutes while you continue to stir. Then you're just gonna gradually add about half a cup of flour, just stirring it in, making sure it's fully incorporated before you add a little bit more. And at this point, you're just gonna turn your heat down to low and let it slowly toast. Then after a few minutes, or when it's developed a nice nutty scent, add in a 4th cup of Japanese curry powder, a teaspoon of cayenne, a 4th teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of ginger powder, then half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and ground cumin. Then you're just gonna mix that all together and continue to let toast on low heat. And you wanna make sure you keep it moving, that way none of your spices burn at the bottom. And after a few minutes, it should smell absolutely remarkable, as well as be fairly thick. Now we're just gonna go ahead and very carefully move that over to a container, making sure we scrape down all the sides of our pan. Seriously, get every last drop of it because this stuff is delicious. And now we can throw this in the fridge to chill while we work on the rest of the curry. Now at this point, it doesn't really matter if you made your own curry roux or you're using the pre-made curry cubes. From this point forward, it's all the same. And you're gonna start by roughly chopping a sweet onion. Now these cuts can be more or less as rough as you want them because we're gonna end up blending everything together anyways. This is just to help us cook down faster. And we'll just set those aside in a bowl. Next up, we'll just peel or circumcise, depending on how you look at it, some carrots. And I'm just gonna go ahead and grate these because it really helps it cook down faster than if it was left in chunks. Then once you get down to the nubbin, just toss it and go to the next. It's not worth your fingertips. Rice is done. Then we'll just move that over with our onions as well. Now we're just gonna peel a Fuji apple, or the sweetest apple you can get your hands on. And then into a different bowl, we're just gonna go ahead and grate that as well. But you're only gonna do about half of the apple. And make sure when you're finished, you go ahead and scrape out the inside of your grate box because oftentimes stuff gets stuck. And I just realized I totally messed up, but I'm gonna go ahead and mash up some ginger and some garlic, oops, and add it to our carrots. We only need about an inch knob of ginger, maybe an inch and a half depending on the thickness of your ginger. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this into discs. And then very similar to how we do our garlic, edge of our board, bench scraper on top, and give it a good smash. And just like that, very nicely minced ginger. And we'll just give it one rough chop through just to break it all up. And we'll just move that over to our onions and carrots. And then just repeat with about 4 to 6 cloves of garlic. And remember, this part doesn't necessarily have to be perfect because it's all gonna get blended up. Okay, and now this last bit of prep is sort of optional. It's more of a personal preference thing, but you need 1 carrot, about 2 Yukon Gold potatoes. We're gonna peel this carrot, then you're just gonna cut, roll, 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 cut, roll. Give you these nice, cool, weird shapes. I think there's a name for it. I don't know the name for it. But you're just gonna go ahead and do that all the way down till you get to the end of your carrot. And then we'll just move those aside in a totally separate bowl from everything else. And then we'll go ahead and peel and cube up 2 of these Yukon potatoes. Actually, you know what? I'm calling an audible. The potatoes I got are a little bit bigger than what I was thinking in my brain and what I've used before, so we're just gonna use one. But feel free to use more if you want. Now you're gonna bring a large pot to medium heat, add in a little bit of food lube, just to make sure nothing sticks, and then we'll add in our onions, carrots, garlic, and ginger. Now you can technically do the onions first to build up a little bit more char, but I'm gonna be honest with you, like it's an extra step that I don't think adds a ton of flavor, but it's a personal preference thing. But you are gonna wanna make sure you keep all of this moving because there is garlic and you don't want it to burn. And don't forget to salt. Oh, it's gonna be a pain to clean up. It's in my crock. There's salt in my crock. And now after about 5 to 7 minutes, your onion should be nice and translucent and your carrot should be nice and soft. It should also smell fantastic. We're gonna add in our now super gross looking apple juice sludge thing. It's not really apple juice. I mean, there's juice in it, but it's more of the pulp. And we're just gonna mix that all together. And then after about another couple minutes of constant movement, we're gonna add our liquid. We'll start with about 2.5 cups of chicken bone broth, and then 2.5 cups of dashi stock, which is just a Japanese fish stock. And like most of you, I don't really have dashi laying around, but there are two good options. Shiro dashi, which is just a dashi concentrate, so you add this to water, makes dashi stock. Or hon dashi, which is just a granulated powdered version of dashi concentrate, which you add to water, mix it up, becomes dashi stock. But today, we're just gonna go with shiro dashi. And then our other half cup, which by the way, if you don't want to use dashi or you have something against using a fish stock, totally fine. You could just use all chicken stock or you could just use water. It would not be very good, but you could use water, but use chicken stock if you're not going to use dashi. And now we're just gonna bring this whole thing up to a simmer. Then after a few minutes of simmering, we're gonna add in our curry roux. And if you didn't make yours yourself, that's okay. You just add in the curry cubes, all good. We're just gonna go ahead and stir that up until it's nicely combined. Then we'll add in 2 tablespoons of a tablespoon of ketchup, a tablespoon of oyster sauce, 2 tablespoons of shoyu, a very careful pinch of salt because I don't want to clean anymore, and a touch of white pepper, 1/4 to a 1/2 teaspoon. Then we're just gonna mix this all together. And then we're gonna turn our heat down to low. Now for this next part, you can definitely use a blender, but I don't like pouring hot liquids, and my history with blending hot liquids is even worse. But I prefer to just blend about 1/3 of it. So I'm just gonna use an immersion blender. We're gonna carefully tilt, and we're just gonna blend. Now this is definitely gonna take you longer than with a blender, but it's a little bit safer, and washing blenders sucks. Now once it's fully blended, we're gonna go ahead and add in a couple tablespoons of cold unsalted butter, and then we'll continue blending for a little longer. This will help get it extra silky and smooth. Does anybody else have the impulsive thought to pull the trigger when it's outside of the pot? Because I get that thought a lot, but I've never acted on it. Now at this point, our curry should be extremely smooth and absolutely delectable. Oh yeah, it's so good. Now at this point, your curry is totally ready to be drinking through a straw. Drinking? Whatever. But a lot of people like chunky curry, and it's fairly popular in Japan, and that's okay. I like my curry chunk-free, but I'm a man of the people. So now you remember the extra vegetables we prepped earlier? Go ahead and add that into your curry, and we're just gonna stir it all together. Now those pieces are fairly small, so they're gonna cook fairly fast. So I'm just gonna kill the heat, place a lid on top, and set it to the side while we make our chicken. And don't worry, it'll stay warm. And finally, to make the crispiest katsu. And now we'll start by butterflying open some chicken chests, chicken breasts, chicken titties, whatever you wanna call them. You'll start at the fat end, and you'll just take your knife and bring it all the way down until it exits. And that should leave you with 4 relatively even pieces of chicken that we're gonna now flatten out. For this, you're gonna want a large piece of plastic wrap just to cover your chicken. Now, once it's all nicely covered, you can use a mallet, you can use a meat tenderizer, you can use a pan or a pot. You're gonna start at your thick end and you're gonna work your way to your thin end. You just want it to be all the same thickness.
Many chicken smacks later.
And just like that, voila. And now we're just gonna salt and pepper both sides of our chicken fairly liberally because this is the only seasoning our chicken's gonna get. And you could do other seasonings, but you're already gonna be dipping this in curry, and that curry is just so flavorful and so powerful that really you just want the flavor of the chicken because it goes really well with the flavor of the curry. In our first dredge station, we've got a couple cups of AP flour. Now we have our eggs. We'll hit that with just a pinch of salt, and then we'll whisk those together. And our last station is our panko, which is the most important part. Please, please, please do not use that generic store brand breadcrumbs because they are too fine. You want Japanese style panko because the breadcrumbs are going to be larger. And now that this is all set up, you're simply just going to grab a piece of your chicken. You're gonna lay it carefully down in the flour because if you slap it down, flour's gonna go poof, and it's not a great time. But you just wanna make sure all of your chicken is coated in flour, that there are no naked bits. Once it's coated, you're just gonna tap it lightly so that way all the excess comes off. And then you're just gonna carefully lay it down in your egg and repeat. Pull it up, let all that excess egg yolk just drip on off, and we're gonna lay it down in our panko. and give this one a few pats down to make sure you get all that panko pressed in real nice and deep, so that way you end up with a nice crispy layer. And this is what you're looking for. And then you're just gonna repeat that with the rest of your chicken cutlets. Now you're gonna fill a heavy bottom pot with food lube or fry oil, same stuff. You want at least 3 inches from the bottom of the pot and at least 2 from the top. And then we're just gonna bring this up to 350 degrees. And the reason that you want to use a heavy bottom pot versus just like a regular stainless steel pot is because when we add in our cold chicken, it's going to drop that oil temperature down. So if your pot is thinner and it doesn't retain as much heat, then it's going to take longer for it to come back up to temperature. And for those of you who live the air fryer life, good on you. I don't like air fryer, but you can do this in an air fryer. It's just not gonna come out as crispy or as golden or quite frankly as delicious. Like, just be real here. And now that our oil is right about 350, we can carefully lay in one of our chicken cutlets. And this right here is why you want your oil to have at least a couple inches between the top of the oil and the top of your pot, because as you can see, it's bubbling. And you don't want it to spill over and cause a huge mess or worse, hurt yourself, and just don't do it. Just leave some space. Leave a buffer. And because these cutlets are so thin, they're gonna cook pretty quickly. So mine's been about 5 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it, let it drip, and then let it rest on a wire rack. And this is one of those recipes where you're just gonna kind of have to trust that your chicken is cooked. Like if you take your chicken out and then you temp check it and you see where it's at, and you drop it back in. The problem with that is that little prong is going to make a hole, and that hole is gonna let in oil. It's gonna make your chicken really greasy and not crispy. So cut it open afterwards, see if it's done. As long as it's golden and crispy, it'll be done. And then continue on with the rest of your chicken. As long as your oil temp stays the same, your chicken will be the same. And the last thing we're gonna do is just thinly slice some green onions long ways, and then place those into an ice bath so we can get nice, curly garnish. Wait a minute, hold up, I almost forgot the healthier-ish alternative. All you have to do is thinly slice some cabbage and use that instead of rice. And with that, thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell, and I'll see you next week.